At Truth Matters UK, we look at how media systems shape public life, politics, trust and accountability. In recent videos, we've examined how media failure distorts democracy, weakens institutions and protects those in power. In this investigation, we're looking at another face of the same problem. Not elections, not geopolitics, but children. Specifically, how unregulated social media systems are harming our children and why our current approach to media regulation isn't stopping it. Before we begin though, a brief content warning. This investigation includes blurred references to suicide, self-harm, eating disorders and serious mental health distress. These references are not included for impact or shock. Every image and example you'll see comes from documented research into how social media systems affect children. This is a longer and more uncomfortable investigation than we usually publish, but it is important. Because when harm is well documented yet remains hidden from public view, silence becomes part of the problem. If any part of this affects you personally, support resources are listed on the screen. 3 minutes. Making everyone think you're fine so you can attempt suicide in private. That's how long it took TikTok's algorithm to recommend this to a fake 13-year-old account. 386,000 people liked this. This one is a video of a teen girl crying and saying you're not thinking of taking your life, right? 327,000 likes. This one, going to school after an attempt, 78,000 likes. These aren't hidden in dark corners of the internet. TikTok's algorithm actively recommends them. In 2025, after the Online Safety Act began coming into force, researchers repeated similar tests. After a teen account engaged with sad content, 96 to 97% of all recommended content became harmful. Even after the act began, investigations show recommendation systems can rapidly escalate harmful material. Molly Russell, 14, in 2017, Instagram recommended thousands of self-harm posts. In 2022 alone, 4 children died doing a TikTok blackout challenge. Jules Sweeney, 14, Isaac Kenovan, 13, Archie Battersby, 12, Maya Walsh, 13. A lawsuit filed by their families claimed TikTok pushed dangerous challenge videos to children to boost engagement. Then, in 2025, Oliver Gorman, 12, another online challenge, Chroming. We're going to take a deeper look into a couple of these. So in November 2017, Molly Russell, 14 years old, took her own life after months of depression. Her father, Ian Russell, spent 5 years fighting Meta to access her Instagram data. 5 years later, when they finally handed it over, just weeks before the inquest, he found Molly had saved, liked or shared over 16,000 posts in 6 months. 2,100 of them were about depression, self-harm or suicide. Content like this, 2,100 times in 6 months. That's about 11 times every single day. Just let this sink in and look at these images. It's beyond sickening. The coroner's verdict was historic. The first time globally a court formally ruled that online content contributed to a child's death. This was in 2022, 3 years before the Online Safety Act came into force. Pinterest's algorithm sent Molly automated emails. Subject lines like 10 depression pins you might like, an image of a bloody razor, and one email containing graphic self-harming images actually arrived after she died. Fast forward to October 2025, a coroner issued a Prevention of Future Deaths report for Oliver Luke Gorman, 12 years old. He died after attempting something called Gorman, which he'd seen online. Gorman is inhaling vapours from things like hairsprays. The coroner explicitly raised concerns about online Gorman material and the risk to children. This was 7 months after the Online Safety Act's illegal harms duty came into force, and the coroner went further. In the Prevention of Future Deaths report, they wrote this, highlighting that this will continue to take the lives of our kids unless the platform or government take action. the former seeming unlikely. A coroner, someone who investigates death, examined the evidence and concluded platforms won't fix this voluntarily. Only government action will work. This isn't anecdotal. 7 in 10 children encountered harmful content in the past month. 1 in 3 saw content actively promoting suicide or self-harm. Youth suicide rates are up 35% in a single year. Eating disorder admissions up 84% in 5 years. And here's what makes this absolutely criminal. They knew, or at the very least they suspected. Internal meta-research from 2019, later disclosed through whistleblower documents, showed researchers warned about a casual relationship between Instagram's design and self-harm content. This was 2 years before Molly died, 3 years before the Online Safety Act was even proposed. What did Mark Zuckerberg say publicly? Under oath, Mark Zuckerberg repeatedly argued that the existing research did not show a clear causal link between Facebook's products and mental health harm, even as his own company's internal research warned otherwise. In 2022, the Centre for Countering Digital Hate created fake accounts pretending to be 13-year-olds. 2.6 minutes, that's how long it took TikToks to start showing suicide content. 8 minutes for eating disorders. Every 39 seconds more content about mental health and body image. 69,000 likes, 56,000 likes, 35,000 likes. This isn't marginal content, this is mainstream on the platform. Sean Parker, who was Facebook's founding president, in 2017 he gave an interview and he told the truth. Let's just take a look at what he had to say.
Into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, to really understand it. That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that we the inventors, creators, and it's me, it's Mark, it's the Kevin Systrom at Instagram, it's all of these people. Understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
We understood this consciously, and we did it anyway. They designed addiction into the product on purpose because engagement equals profit, and they knew it would harm children. Sean Parker said they were exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. Social media isn't a chemical drug, but peer-reviewed research published in Addictive Behaviours shows social media use meets the same clinical addiction criteria as gambling and substance abuse. Brain imaging studies using fMRI scans shows it activates the same dopamine reward systems of substance addiction and gambling. Not similar, the same. The design isn't accidental. Research published in the Frontiers in Psychology shows platforms use gambling-style variable reward schedules. Unpredictable notifications, sometimes you get likes, sometimes you don't. Slot machine psychology, engineered into the product. And critically, adolescents are neurologically more vulnerable to these systems. Research in current directions in psychology science shows the parts of the brain responsible for impulse control aren't fully developed until the mid-20s. That's why children are the target, not because they're digital natives, because their brains are biologically more vulnerable to addictive design. That's why we regulate gambling, that's why we restrict alcohol sales to minors, and that's why unregulated algorithmic design for children is a public health issue. Not a culture war. This isn't moral panic, this is neuroscience. So what about the Online Safety Act? Passed in 2023, illegal harms duties came into force in March 2025. Here's what it requires. Platforms must assess risk to children, take proportional steps to mitigate their risk, and remove illegal content. Sounds reasonable, but here's the problem. It's heavily systems and process based. Platforms must conduct risk assessments, take reasonable proportional steps, but who decides what's reasonable, what's proportionate, and what happens when they don't? Ofcom is enforcing. Under the Online Safety Act, they fined 4chan £20,000 for failing to respond to information requests about risk assessments. They fined AVS Group, an adult website operator, $1 million plus $50,000 for failing age verification. And under the older video sharing platform regime, they also fined TikTok $1.875 million for inaccurate reporting about parental controls, and OnlyFans $1 million for inaccurate reporting about age assurance. So enforcement is happening, but here's the pattern. Most public fines so far are about age checks and failure to provide accurate information to regulators. What we still haven't seen is a major public enforcement outcome aimed directly at recommendation systems, or the algorithms, driving self-harm or eating disorder spirals. The kinds of recommendation dynamics highlighted in most cases, like Molly Russell's, platforms actively recommended suicide content to vulnerable teens, still haven't been the subject of major public enforcement. Not because the evidence isn't there, the coroner's verdict made it pretty clear. Not because Ofcom doesn't care, but because the Act makes algorithmic accountability a systems and process games rather than an outcome-based enforcement. Platforms conduct risk assessments, claim they're taking reasonable steps, demonstrate they have policies in place, and the core problem remains unaddressed. Here's the structural problem. Ofcom's entire budget for all sectors, so telecoms, broadcasting, online safety, everything, is £227 million for 25-26. Meta alone spent $13 billion on trust and safety between 2016 and 2021, approximately 11 times larger than Ofcom's entire budget. When the regulator is that outmatched, reasonable steps means whatever the platform says it means. And one of the clearest warning signs is the revolving door. At least 36 people have moved from UK tech regulators or government departments to major tech firms. TikTok hired 6 people from Ofcom and the ICO, while the ICO investigates how TikTok uses children's data. 6 of 9 Ofcom board members previously held private positions in the media sector. When former officials take lucrative jobs at the platforms, current officials know the same opportunity awaits, and that changes incentives. Big tech spends €151 million every year lobbying in Europe. That's up 33% in just 2 years. Meta leads this at $10 million per year, and it works. Australia looked at this problem and banned social media for under 16s. It took effect in December 2025. Prime Minister Albanese cited protecting children's mental health. But here's what's interesting. Researchers debate whether the evidence clearly supports a blanket ban. Some say it could push kids to less regulated platforms. Others worry about privacy risks from age verification. But Australia acted anyway because political will overcame industrial lobbying. The UK has stronger evidence. Coroner verdicts directly linking platform content to children's deaths. But the UK's act is more cautious, more systems-based, more vulnerable to the compliance games. It's not necessarily wrong. Regulation can be smarter than bans, but only if it works. We don't ban things that cause harm, we regulate them. So we didn't ban cars because they kill people, we required safety features. Didn't ban alcohol because it's addictive, we restricted sales to minors. We didn't ban gambling because it ruins lives, we required a duty of care. Why is social media the only industry allowed to make addictive products to children with zero accountability? Not because regulation is impossible, because regulatory capture prevents it. But here's what real regulation would look like. Regulation that changes incentives, that makes platforms liable when the algorithms promote suicide content to vulnerable teens, that gives bereaved parents answers, that funds enforcement properly. The Online Safety Act has pieces of this in it, but not enough, not yet. Molly Russell, Oliver Gorman, Jules Sweeney, their parents are still fighting, still campaigning, still trying to get answers from platforms with unlimited legal budgets. The Online Safety Act was supposed to change this. The test isn't whether the law sounds strong, it's whether it stops children dying. 7 months after a legal harms duty came into force, a coroner issued another prevention of future deaths warning about online content. The Act exists, but the question is, does it work? Truth Matters is the start of a campaign to demand media reform. Our main tool to reach the public is via our YouTube channel, so please subscribe, like, comment on the videos and share to help the channel grow. Let's get this message out and create so much public pressure that we cannot be ignored.